What's up? It's Rashaud, joined by Max.
Hey guys.
Now, do I call you Max Schneider? Do I say just Max?
Whatever. I mean, musically, I go by Max.
Yeah.
And then, but my name is Max Schneider. So.
Got it. So we're just gonna call him Max for now.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you came off of a very big summer. You were touring with Fall Out Boy, Wiz Khalifa, Hoodie Allen, the Boys of Summer tour, or Zummer, however you want to pronounce that.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Amazing. Yeah, it was the best tour of my life.
Yeah.
So we had a great time.
Did you learn? I can imagine you learned a lot from Fall Out Boy and Wiz Khalifa.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you might have learned?
I mean, it's amazing to see, being a fan of the music and being able to see a tour like that and then being a part of a tour like that, two extremely separate worlds that I feel like when you see a show like that, you figure the backstage is a whole different environment.
Right.
And being a part of it, it's fascinating to watch because it really is all about the work always. You know, they're always, everybody, Wiz, Fall Out Boy, they care so much about their show and they're investing so much of themselves. Even while we're on the tour, they're changing things, they're figuring out different things in the set. And it's really cool to see how a lot of that comes from an organic place from the band or from the artist.
Right.
And then, of course, it's like a circus, it's like a zoo backstage, and they have, there's all these crew guys, and then with Wiz, there are these, blow up joints. And
right.
There's a crew guy whose job is to blow up the joints that are like 7 feet.
Yeah.
And it's so it's fascinating to see the details happen.
Right.
But then also to see how the show comes together to become this really epic experience.
Yeah.
And I learned that it's all about the details, and that's what really makes an artist or a band who they are, what they are. And that was awesome to see from behind the scenes for the tour.
Did Wiz teach you how to roll a joint? Is that something? Because I can imagine that, and you see the pictures on his Instagram and stuff like that. He's very into that lifestyle.
Totally.
I can imagine backstage nothing but he walks around with a cloud of smoke surrounding him.
I mean, he's a happy guy.
He is
always a happy guy. I didn't personally get joint rolling lessons from him. I've watched him many times do many things.
And I can imagine he's an expert at it.
Yes, for sure. He knows what he's doing. But I loved, it was it's a very different vibes on tour. Wiz always knows had a great time. Every time his dressing room was always like a little party after the show, and great like lighting and black lights and whatever else. He brought his dressing room with him, so he had like a beanbag chair and whatever else.
Awesome.
They put every time to get the vibe right.
Yeah.
Whereas the Fall Out Boy guys, they're all family guys. They got their kids and like it's just a different. They're awesome. It's just different vibes backstage. But yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of. I like to say often a lot of different smells going on the whole tour.
I bet. What's your upbringing? I mean, you're from New York City.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what did your parents do?
My parents, they're both lawyers.
Okay.
So they've always been incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
But just sort of grew up in a house where people, they were like, be who you want to be, and that was awesome. I was really lucky to have that, and I grew up mostly in New York. I was born and raised, and then I lived upstate New York and Woodstock, New York for a bit, and so a very hippie community. And, just kind of started doing musical theater and dancing and writing my own stuff, and it was I couldn't be luckier, honestly, because they've always been supportive. They still come to like half the gigs on tours.
That's awesome.
They like make little road trips to come to New Mexico or whatever else, which is cool.
So were there a lot of rules for you? Do you have any siblings?
I'm an only child.
Only child.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of rules for you growing? I mean, because I can imagine your parents, lawyers, very very busy.
Yeah.
They might not have time to keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
Did you just roam the house free? Did you do whatever you? How did that work for you?
I mean, they definitely encouraged me to make my own mistakes and whatever else, and I think because of that, I never really wanted to rebel against them or whatever else. They never, as a kid, they were never like, oh, don't drink, don't smoke, none of those things, And I don't drink now, and I don't, a lot of things they let me do and figure out. I would have the parties at my place as a kid, and
awesome.
They just always wanted to encourage me to do that, and I think that was, I really appreciate that because I think that influenced, my music and whatever else, really being able to experience things and take in those experiences and not be ashamed of them. So that was awesome that they were like that. I mean, they were so busy, they had their own law firm and whatever else, but I really only had a nanny when I was really little, and Spanish was sort of my first language, and now I can't really speak a lick of it.
Yeah.
But they were always around, which was awesome.
Growing up, when did you realize that you can sing, you can dance, you can act, and that you look really great in pictures? Like, when did you realize, wait a minute, I can do all of these things, and clearly no one is going to get in my way of doing this?
I mean, I just caught the bug early, I guess. I grew up so close to Broadway shows and saw a bunch as a kid, and you know, I always tell the story that I went to my first show. It was, you know, Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. Went back to my house, performed the whole thing for my family in my underwear. I was just like super stoked. And I kept doing that every time we'd see a show, and I was like 4 years old, and that's when they realized that maybe I wanted to, you know, do that, and started doing more shows, like youth theater and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just got into it, and they, you know, I just never stopped, I guess. I think that's the other thing that's really was wonderful about them raising me in the way that they always did, was that they always kind of taught me never to let yourself be put in a box. Or you can, there's a lot of boxes that you can let yourself be constricted by, but in the end, I mean, you gotta live your life, and you gotta be proud of your past, and just move forward from it. So that's sort of the philosophy I always take in with myself.
And that's a good lesson. If you had to pick, because I would like to think you're a quadruple threat.
Thank
you. If you had to pick, what would you pick?
Music.
Singing. Okay, you pick music.
Yeah, always. I mean, even I've been really lucky to do a lot of projects on, you know, TV and movies where it's involved music. It's been, you know, I did some stuff on Nickelodeon where it was like musical shows and movies and stuff, and that's always I love that, and maybe one day I'd love to do some more stuff like that. But I mean, in the end, there's nowhere I feel more alive and more comfortable than, you know, performing my own stuff on stage or just in an intimate environment, and it's just the most personal thing in the world. And I think, you know, funny enough, like, you know, I love acting and portraying roles, but I'm a terrible liar. I'm very there's not a lot of filter usually, and I think that's something that I love about music, is when you get out on that stage, people can tell right away. You're right in front of everybody. If it's not real, people aren't going to be into it. And I think that was a big thing for me, realizing that that's what I loved. I felt vulnerable in that place, but because of that, I felt empowered, and that's what performance has always been to me.
That's awesome. You mentioned this Nickelodeon show that you were on.
Yeah.
How old were you when you were on the show?
I started the show when I was 18. I think 18. Yeah.
Got it. So you were already an adult.
Yeah.
And I asked that question because you hear a lot of times, a lot of former child stars on Nickelodeon, Disney Channel.
Oh yeah.
They mentioned that they felt very restricted, and when they were doing these shows, Miley, Demi, they've all spoken out about it.
Yeah.
Did you feel that at all when you were doing the show?
Not at all. I think that, again, like my first gig was this show on Broadway when I was 16. That was the first real like pro gig I ever had, and I appreciated the fact that that was really the start, because, you know, you grow up fast in New York, and you know, going to high school there and whatever else. But because of that, I feel like I got to experience a lot of things that a lot of kids, stars, whatever, on these shows, they don't really get to experience, which I get that. I even had some kids on certain shows I did that were 14, 15, and I saw that. I mean, you're spending all your time with these 4 people on this show, and there's only so much you can take of that to really not feel like you're getting a real adolescence. You know?
Exactly.
And I think that's really important for anybody. Even if I knew one of the actresses on the show. She did a really good job of, you know, staying in high school and being with her friends, and then also being on the show, which is a difficult thing to do, but I think it's important, because, you know, who you are as a person really influences your art, and if you can't really experience that in a real way, then you're never going to be able to influence that with the art. It'll be, you know, you'll never have experiences to draw from.
Sure.